Hi everyone, Harry here. Hope you enjoy the show. As you know, we can't keep doing this podcast unless we get support. And I'm very pleased to say on this episode, we are supported by MotoGP Premier. And I'm legally bound to tell you, this is an advert. Get ready for a heart-pounding adventure at the official 75th anniversary of MotoGP at the British Grand Prix. Be there when the fastest motorcycles in the world roar to life at one of motorsport's most iconic venues. Enjoy the special retro liveries from all teams and off-track entertainment too, with performances by the Kooks, Sigma, the Darkness, and jaw-dropping stunt shows. It's going to be awesome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to OMG MotoGP. This week, I'm joined with a very good friend of mine that we do love a chat, and I can't imagine this only lasting a few minutes, Jules. I've got to say, Julian Ryder joins us on OMG.
Good to be back, Keith. How are we?
I'm very well, mate, and good to see you as well. Looking so fit as well and enjoying your, I won't call it retirement because neither of us use that word.
No, I don't. I just keep messing about with, interesting little things like that, sort of little old motors that's just keep bit of jump.
Let's jump right back, Jules, if we can, mate, because I think me and you are fairly long in the tooth nowadays, so I don't think everybody knows the Julian Ryder. Everybody knows the Julian Ryder that we know around MotoGP and journalists and the like, but I wonder whether they know you as a person and where you came from and how that developed. I mean, the story is me and you have discussed it in many a hire car over the years, but I'm not sure that everybody knows about that. Where you're from and how did you get to where you are?
Northerner, born in Liverpool, primary school in Hampshire, secondary school in Macclesfield, University at Kent, first job in Hertfordshire, and I fell into being trained as a sub-editor by the Learned Society, the Institute of Electrical Engineers, on very heavyweight academic stuff. Very good training. Dry as dust, obviously, but extremely good training. And then into the technical press, and then somebody gave me a job in a motorcycle magazine, which was my ambition, because I was always a motorcyclist. And I sort of fell into the journalism side of things. And discovered it's, I had an ambition. In the late 70s, early 80s, I was obsessed with Bike Magazine. It was the only credible, to anybody with a bit of independence and rebellion and whatever, under 25. It was the only magazine. And I got a job on it by the time I was 30. I think I spent 8 years asking.
Obviously your family background is quite academic as well. I mean,
yeah.
Guy, your brother, is a bigwig in the UN and so on and the like. We often talk about your brother, but we're not going to talk about him now, just as an aside. But
I think he's rather busy.
Indeed, and will continue to be so with the world as it is at the minute. But I mean, did you disappoint your parents by going to bikes, perhaps? I mean, I could...
Well, I didn't tell my dad. He was teaching in Hong Kong when I got the job. I left the design council, a good, on an engineering magazine, a very nice magazine. And I flitted. I thought, I'll just keep that quiet for a while, And I think the first time my dad was impressed, and he tried not to be impressed by his children. He made a habit of it, And it's, we didn't tell you, but he was teaching for a year at Cambridge University as a guest fellow. And one of his research students got quite excited, a guy doing a PhD at Cambridge we're talking about, because he discovered that the son of his tutor was a bike magazine journalist. I think my dad was quite, thought, oh.
I mean, what were the aspirations for you back then? I mean, obviously, your turn of phrase, your independence, your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your integrity, I think is the word I'm looking for. As a journalist, has always been unsurpassed in my view. It's not been clouded even by your opinions. Although I haven't said that. No, it has been clouded by your opinions. And I do quite enjoy that.
I think you're that's slightly idealized view of history there, Keith. No, it's. I mean, if you're taught journalism by good journalists, it's just inculcated in you that one, the journalist is not the story, As soon as the journalist becomes the story, something has gone badly wrong. That is always something
that sounds to me like television presenters as well. How they become the main focus point when actually
that's not what you're there for.
Well, that's what we think, but that's not what
we
a lot of
think.
people think.
What they think is a different matter. And you're not the story. And good journalism is good journalism. That's it. It's rounding up the facts as best you can and presenting them in a digestible fashion.
So how do you feel about the way things are now, in as much as that clickbait wise, you always taught me that you've got to have two verifiable sources before you bleat on about it and you put it out in the public domain.
That was the old way in newspapers, magazines and whatever. Yeah, I've been told that so-and-so's going to Kawasaki. Who told you? Joe Blogs. Anybody else? No, we can't use it. It was that. Almost, you wanted two independent sources before your news editor or your editor would say, okay, write the story. You'd be told to bugger off and do it properly.
So does this clickbait world that we live in nowadays drive you insane? Is that one of the reasons why you like being where you are?
The risk of sounding like an old fart to yes, because nothing, it is, don't mind, nobody can object on the citizen journalist, that's fine. But a journalist checks facts, does some background before pressing send.
Do you think it's that we're in this race to the bottom now, in as much as that everybody just wants to get that first line of clickbait out there before the next line of clickbait that someone else has got?
Do you remember back, I forget which paddock we were in, but there was suddenly an enormous fuss because a fairly innocuous rumor about, I don't know, one of the top Spanish riders going to a different team was published in El País, the venerable, sort of cross between the Guardian and the Daily Telegraph, as was. And there was people running around banging into each other, because it's in El País. Now, if it had been in a motorcycle magazine or one of the tabloids, nobody would have even batted an eyelid. There are still I think, we're almost where the reader, the public knows. If you read it on, you read it on X, there is no reason why this should be true. None whatsoever, unless the loss of the proper blue tick actually is a bad thing for all journalists, because it used to at least indicate that you were dealing with somebody with some, expertise or recognized in the area. Now that's gone. So the one thing I thought was good about Twitter as was, and it was like having a big magazine. You could probably, with a bit of cutting out the obvious loonies who always hang around the edges, you can use it as research, but that's sort of gone for various reasons. But I still think the reader has a different view to something he reads on Twitter to something that comes up on, say, the BBC World Service. They're treated with two different levels of acceptance, aren't they?
So there's a pecking order of credibility, effectively, all the way down to...
I think the reader has that credibility rating going on. It's Joe Soap on Twitter. Oh yeah.
Well, it's funny you should say that, in as much as we had the Lewis Hamilton buying Grassini story that broke in, but only the lower end. If you pardon that to anybody that's listening that might be upset by me saying that, but you never saw it in any of the what we would consider to be the higher end of the
because
of
no
the journalistic...
proper journalist could stand it up. And if somebody might have tried to, but a news editor or the next level, a chief sub-editor or something, would have said, off. Get it sourced somewhere.
So what about television? I mean, me and you ended up playing together in TV. I mean, which I always remember.
The right word.
I always remember David Hill, who was the head of Fox in America and was the head of Sky Sports back in the day when he transited from Eurosport to Sky. He swore at me and said, "It's the suspension of reality, mate. Television is just the suspension of reality. Don't take it too seriously." And that was coming from the boss back in the day. And obviously he had some insight into where life was heading when we got to the digital media. But I mean, television now seems to cater for that very middle stream. It's no longer looking for the edgy stories that we were always encouraged to dig out. It seems to be now very vanilla, don't you think, or don't you think?
I'm not sure it's changed much, sport TV, because if you're in, like we were, in quite a small world, in a little village of the Meadow Grand Prix paddock, you don't need to make enemies. You can't terminally tick somebody off, or you might never get to talk to, anybody about Honda again, for instance. So there is a certain, there were parameters beyond which you didn't go. And you didn't need to, frankly. It's a bloody sport. It's not, it's not the sort of crap my brother has to deal with over there in New York. It's only a bloody sport, and it's played within rules. So I don't think that's bad. What I do think has got worse, and it was probably fairly crap to start with, but every sports song, you look at you can find lacrosse, you can find whatever, can't you? You can find it, but there's still a bloody executive producer somewhere going, oh, that's a bit niche, that's a bit anorak, don't get too complicated. I've banged my head against the wall. There's 1 million plus motorcycle license holders in this country. They have some knowledge. They're not scared of you telling them how an automatic gearbox works. In fact, they like it. Back in the old Eurosport days, I used to do, like on a Friday, I'd have a cameraman for literally 15 minutes. We did everything from how a gearbox works, click, 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 to if you open up a radiator, the cooling surface is the side of three of these pits, and that's what hot water flows over to get cold. And it went down a storm. People loved it. You have to. It's the one thing I've always thought. If I'm going to be good at anything, I was always quite good at technical stuff and simplifying it and explaining it. So I will blow my own trumpet, there. And I really enjoyed it, and it went down well. Brilliantly.
I remember you pressing BT, that is now TNT. I remember you pressing BT to get involved more in that. And I was right. I mean, me and you argue a lot, but I was right behind you when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I felt we were so weak on BT on technical.
Yeah, we didn't touch it. I mean, even back in Eurosport, when we didn't have a camera, we just sat in the commentary box. I used to get Neil Spalding. We used to get Neil Spalding in, and we'd interview him for like 2 minutes before a race and go, right, what's the subject? And no, you can't have 10 minutes. You've got 2. Right? Beat him into. And we did a butte at Assen one year, and he said, "Well, round here, fuel consumption, because and he sort of went about it. It's either you're either wide open, or you're going up through the gears, which is what uses gas." And I think that's when guess who it was ran out of petrol on the last lap. We didn't half feel smug.
That used to be such good fun when you commentate, it must be the same from a journalistic point of view, but it's over a longer time scale when you write it and then it comes to fruition. But when you're saying it live and then it plays out in front of the audience.
Remember Japan, Pedrosa's win from way back on a drying or a wet track, I can't remember which.
I do remember.
You were doing your normal thing, talking about the leaders, going for it. And I looked at the time and thought, good God almighty, Danny was like about 3 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else. He was down in 6th. And with about 8 laps, I said, I know he's going to win this race, Keith.
Experience MotoGP like never before with MotoGP Premier, the official ticket package provider to MotoGP. Dive headfirst into unparalleled access at every race with grandstand seating right in the heart of the action, plus exclusive perks such as guided track tour to see the circuit from a rider's perspective, go behind the scenes on a guided paddock tour, enjoy a team garage experience to see the fastest bikes in the world up close, and even meet your heroes and ask your questions during a rider meet and greet. What are you waiting for? Experience a Grand Prix like an insider.
You looked at me when, Danny Pedrosa. And, that's the luxury of two people as well, one of whom is, like you were, focusing on the race action, and me scanning around for a story.
It worked out. I mean, I think that from a team perspective, you and I, from that point of view, I mean, my blathering on used to give you just that little bit of an opportunity, breather-wise, to analyse the other stuff that was going on. So
absolutely,
I think that's how our team worked as well as it did.
I would agree completely. And I always thought you were brilliant at starts. I was better at finishes, but I never got to do them. But
you did one when you retired.
The last one. Yeah.
Did I say that retire thing?
Yeah. Gone from airports. And you're right, because it was almost the old-fashioned lead commentator doing the race commentary, and then me sort of picking around in the bones a bit further down, looking for a trend or looking for something maybe that was interesting to the championship that would affect championship positions or something like that.
You and me, we always argued, it's something that you and I have always done, and we've always come out at the end of the day with a reasonable compromise between us, which is what I think we have anyway. And it's always been, from that point of view, it's never affected our friendship. But in a situation with other commentators, other situations, you and Toby had an interesting dynamic in that, I always got the impression sometimes Toby got a bit pissed off if you corrected him. Which is something that I think is old-fashioned in broadcasting. If you remember when we first started back in miles ago, they would encourage you not to criticize each other or correct each other, even if the other person was wrong.
We ignored that right from the start.
Yeah, we did.
Completely.
Why did I always find you correcting me?
I don't know, because you were talking more, you see. So a chance percentage of a mistake or an erroneous interpretation.
I remember you tipping coffee in my lap once to try and shut me up.
Wasn't deliberate, but there might have been, I'm sorry about that.
We did have I'll tell you what, though, the reason that I enjoyed working with you as much as I did then and I do now is that your genuine passion for what you're doing and your belief in trying to get it absolutely right is infectious. And I think that's why the fans out there enjoy you so much.
And it was just, I'm blessed with a memory that retains odd facts, which is quite useful in the job we were doing. And it's it's one of the old journalistic things is, what's the story? When slightly later on, and I was maybe working with a few younger lads coming through just in the odds and sods I did before packing up completely, I was sort of charged with coaching them a little bit. And when we were walking into a circuit, I was just saying, right, what's the story? What's the story this weekend? What's the buzz? What they're going to be? That's what we need to get across. Is if it's transfer market speculation, although nowadays that's every bloody race, of course, isn't it? That one's sort of redundant, really. New bits. KTM have bought, their first upgrade for the Moto 3. What's that mean? Do
you kind of, even now, do you keep up with all the technical stuff and as it's going, or because watching it Friday, Saturday, Sunday like we would always do intently all day long, do you have time for that now?
No, I don't. I tend to watch Friday for some reason.
Well, that's because that's the weekend developing, isn't it, from Friday?
Yeah. What's the story? There's
I always remember you. When we commentated together back on the 125, 250, 500 days, I would always major on the 500 to a great extent, whereas you were very detailed on the 125s, 250s.
Well, quite rightly, because the 500 class was the blue ribbon. Absolutely, that's what we were there for. I was then turtling around in, the Kojima 125's got a different rear swinging arm. That is for the proper anoraks, and I liked it. I liked a bit of that.
Do you remember when you converted me with Moto 3 when we first turned up at the first Grand Prix?
Yeah, the first race of the year.
Who was it?
Tom
Tom
Yoyik.
Yoyik, yeah, it was.
Took you down to he was factory KTM, wasn't he then?
Yes.
And I remember you looking at this bike on the bench, a Moto 3 KTM. You put your reading glasses on and knelt down by the back end, looking at the rear suspension, with a rather intent look on your face.
Well, they were works of art, and I've got to say that everybody in our game appreciates good engineering. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and it was a moment of conversion. I could see you walking down, going bloody mopeds, and then
Well, once a two-stroke man, they say.
Absolutely, road to Damascus this way. Yeah, I know. I'm looking at a TZ Yamaha in auction last week, switching away, but just to put on the wall. Can I have it sawn down the middle and I'll put it on the wall? With one of those. There was something 250s. The purity of the engineering of the machine. It was a pure racing bike. No marketing, no nothing.
I think the good old days was the social side of things that went with Grand Prix racing back then. But I think the good days, the good old days now are the rules, the engineering, and where we are at this particular point in time. Do you concur? I mean, do you hark back to the old days, or do you think, like I do at the moment, that we are in the good times? These are good times.
I think the engineering is about where it should be in terms of how it affects. I mean, what did we see Marc Marquez do last weekend in Germany on a year-old bike that isn't supposed to be as good? But as soon as he got sideswiped by Morbidelli, he set the fastest first sector of the weekend. That's nothing to do with machinery, is it?
That's what happens when you get a broken screen in your face. We're going to get on with it now.
But I don't particularly enjoy the lowering devices and the over reliance on aero. I'm not keen on that, mainly because it doesn't relate to street machinery. So
a lot of that will disappear 2027, or it will be pulled back from the brink, should we say? Yeah. Where would you like to see racing go then, with your experience?
Yeah, good question, How long are manufacturers going to want to spend money on internal combustion engines?
Don't
my first question.
Moto E will rule the world.
I enjoyed Moto E at the weekend.
Racing's good.
I like everything about it, but the sound of the bikes are still far too heavy. We're a generation or two of battery technology away from being anywhere, packageable to the sort of thing we see now. Although when you see a grid full of factory Ducatis and electric motors, things are, things are changing.
Yeah, but the trouble is corporately. I mean, I'm the born, as you know, dyed in the wool cynic when it comes to these things. But I just get the feeling that Ducati had to buy into the electric production to try and tick the EU box of. From an environmentally friendly point of view, that they were making an effort in that direction corporately.
Well, a part of Audi make hybrid and electric cars. So, I think you're searching for something to be cynical about there.
Yeah, probably you're right. Well, you know me.
Yes, indeed. No, so we don't know, because the whole bloody subject of electric vehicles is developing so quickly. And a friend of mine in London had one of those little BMW electric things, almost like a smart car. This guy's an engineer, and he used to drive a Range Rover. And he said, this little BMW is a miracle. He said, it is such a clever piece of engineering. And for towns and cities, it's probably the answer. But it's not the answer if you live out in the sticks.
Well, just yet, although they are extended. I got to say that the electric cars really, they're doing it the right way around. They're getting all the kids on side, because at the end of the day, my kids went next door to my neighbour who's got himself a new Tesla. And the things that it does it's like running a nightclub inside. You can set it up.
It's like being inside the bloody iPhone, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. You can even get it to fart.
Yeah.
And of course, young kids just love a car that farts.
Yeah. It's what you're going. You're going up with Teslas and what have you, and it's part of the scenery. It's normal. To us, it's an oddity.
So what's your soapbox at the moment, Jules? I mean, my cynicism is only matched by your soapbox. I mean,
I'm not. I'm sort of aghast at the Japanese industry falling so far behind the Europeans in Grand Prix. Have Honda scored a point yet? Yeah, Marini got a point in Germany.
Marini got a point, yeah, because there was obviously, I think someone got disqualified or whatever it was, or got a 16-second penalty for tyre pressures.
Appalling. Honda and Yamaha.
Did you hear the interview that I did with Neil Spalding on OMG? He's absolutely convinced, as I'm fairly sure you will be, that Yamaha and Honda, it's just a wave at the moment. They will be back.
Oh, tests have shown, haven't they, with Honda especially, that no, this isn't working. Right, sack all those, go to university, recruit a new bunch of kids out of the engineering schools, the real bright ones, and you'll find a new Irimajiri or a new Sashiro, and they'll cure it. Give them a load of money.
Be interesting to see how it all develops over the next couple of years, because the other thing is as well, it's the cost of these things. I mean, the cost of developing, and they're double developing at the moment, aren't they, in the next year, because they've got to develop what they're using right now, and they've still got
new regulations. Yeah. And there's two different things. There's rumours that Honda are going to wheel out an all-new bike in the autumn this year, whereas Yamaha appeared to be in the old-fashioned way of somebody appears from the airport with a Korea, bolt this on. Throw that bit away, put that bit away. Could be really footrest hangers for all I know. But I remember Jerry Burgess saying years ago, there's nothing like being in a works team, and you turn up on a Thursday, and there on the bench is this box.
Those were the days. Those were the days.
Those were the days. Yeah, doesn't quite happen like that anymore, as we all know.
From your point. Sorry.
Because it's not like going to Mons, we're going, hang on, that Honda's got 6 exhaust pipes,
I saw one of them at the Mallory Bike Bonanza.
You were having fun with the oldies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite good fun, because you can wander around and speak to the same people about a different subject, and they don't remember they've seen you just a lap ago.
How nice to see Steve Baker.
I'd tell you what, for a 71-year-old man, he shifted on a TZ 750 around Mallory Park as well.
I bet he did.
The one thing that was if I talk about Mallory for a moment, I mean, it was a great event, obviously not very well supported, I must say, but I think that's more down to the way it was promoted. But the fact was that everywhere you looked, you saw a motorcycle or a rider that you had some massive amount of reverence towards. I mean, it was a great event, but it also took you through the long gone era. And it reminded me of club racing, low-level engineering, muckling them. When I look at where we are now in comparison to then, and I know we're talking quite a long time, but I think the improvements have been remarkable. And I would not, even though I really enjoyed that weekend, and there's obviously a lot of space for classic stuff nowadays. People get off on it, but I'm glad we are where we are.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Then you go and look at a modern Moto Grand Prix Ducati, and it is NASA, isn't it, compared to anything you were?
Well, and therein lies the problem from a rider perspective. I mean, if I only had to go 2 clicks on the front and 3 clicks on the rear, it was perfect. It was my capacity.
But you could argue that if you were running a Manx Norton, that MV looked like a spaceship, didn't it?
So where do you see things in the future for Julian Ryder? Where are you at the moment for that? Well, are you enjoying your life?
I am very much enjoying messing about in auto jumbles and classic shows and things like that. Just waiting for the postman to arrive with some interesting bits, and it's all from an auction. Very nice little models of Triumph Streamliners, Bonneville Streamliners, that are quite rare. You'll be pleased to hear. And
we'll have to look out
somewhere. We'll
have to look out for them, and we'll have to look out for that stuff. And we're going to put in the comments area where your little Instagram or whatever it might be, where you can see those things if you want to buy them and make a bid to Julian Ryder.
Yep.
But for the time being, Jules, I mean, thank you very much for joining us on OMG MotoGP. What you got there, mate?
A lovely little French tin car I got at the weekend. I thought you might. You like the dog in the passenger seat?
I can't mention about a dog in the passenger seat. That's not.
Oh,
not
no, we've all been there.
Jules, it's been lovely to talk to you, mate. And hopefully you'll come back and join us on OMG MotoGP again soon.
Absolute pleasure.
Want an unparalleled Grand Prix experience? MotoGP Premier has you covered. Take 10% off selected 2024 ticket packages at the German, British, Austrian and Aragon Grand Prix. Just use code OMG10 at MotoGPPremier.motogp.com/OMG at the checkout. Not applicable to MotoGP VIP Village or ticket and hotel packages. Ends 15th of July 2024.